A tandem skydive has ended in tragedy.
Bucket list skydiving adventure near the Victorian coast took the most horrific of turns.
What are we doing?
I don't know, maybe just going skydiving or something.
3 pairs jumped from the plane, 2 landed safely at the airport.
Yeah, we're going to be falling out of there soon.
I was just saying, you know, trust God, and that was basically my last memory.
Perfect love casts out all fear. The Bible says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends." It's a concept that's difficult to comprehend, much less fulfill. Yet, that's the example of Jesus to all of us. At some point, we are all confronted by trials, obstacles, and challenges. Chris, who you're about to meet, has probably had more than his fair share. Through a journey of unimaginable difficulty, sprinkled with a serve of poor choices, Chris has proven that God has the power to save, change, and transform beyond that which is humanly imaginable. You're about to see an undeniable and unquestionable revelation of the power of God, an incomprehensible mix of transformation, the cheating of death, and ultimate sacrifice, topped off with a heartbreaking twist. I'm Nicole from Found Rest, and I know you will be astonished, awestruck, moved and blessed beyond measure as you comprehend the magnitude of God's power in the life of this man. Meet Chris Rantel and one of his amazing daughters, Raya.
When I was little, my mum suffered abuse from my dad. One time when mum was hit, she went to the police for protection. They took her home and she got another belting for going to the coppers. I don't remember any quality time with my dad. I remember the negative stuff. Around the age of primary school, I was molested, and then around the end of primary school was the second time I was molested. I developed a pornographic addiction that lasted till I started knowing God.
Will you love and honour each other as man and wife for the rest of your lives?
My marriage was quite volatile. It was all over the place. Before our 12 months of marriage was up, it was in such a turmoil, I guess you could say, that we actually discussed getting an annulment.
I grew up with a dad who was very quick to anger. He was very impatient, and at times it was like you're walking on eggshells.
When I was 22, I joined the part-time army. I was in the army for 18 years. There's also around these early years, like in the early 90s, I started dealing in drugs, and I thought I was going to be one of those, smart drug dealers where they'd never use a product, they just sell and make money. However, that wasn't the case. Ended up starting on marijuana, and then it started just at home on a daily basis. Around this time, I became a spiritualist, so I trained under white witches, and I was into tarot cards, faith healing, astro travel, numerology, but I now know it is the devil doing that, and it's not part of God. I was so heavily involved in the drug scene, in the crime scene, and when I was at that stage of seriously considering going onto heroin. I didn't believe in God at that stage. I believed that there was maybe a God, maybe a force, maybe Mother Nature, maybe something. However, it was like the hand of God come down and said, Chris Rantel, you are no longer in the drug scene, and just plucked me out. And it's just like, I look back now, I'm thinking, well, like, even though I didn't really know God on a personal level, I can see how he works. Just absolutely amazing. So as time rolls on, I'm very committed in the Army, even though it was part-time Army, very, very committed. My priority was Army, work, family. I wasn't a really good father, I wasn't a really good husband, I wasn't a really good friend, very selfish, very violent. I was angry, very immature. My wife, Bernie, often called herself a single parent. I'd go over to the Army for a weekend or a fortnight or 6 weeks. One night I came home from work, from the Army, opened the door, Bernie was there, and I said, I'm going. There was no discussion, no conversation, it was going. I'm going to go on an operation to East Timor. I left Bernie in our hometown for 15 months while I was on a contract overseas. But I came back in body only. Like Bernie would say to me and say to others that I never came home because I was a mess. Mentally, there was something wrong with me. I was distant, and like now I was extremely angry, I was extremely violent.
His anger was extreme and he was just out of it most of the time, but then when he wasn't out of it, he was just very scary. And I remember I was helping my little sister with her homework and she just wasn't understanding, and I was like, why aren't you getting it? And then Dad came in and Dad got really, really angry at her and like started hurting her, and then Mum came in to try and protect, and then Dad got really mad at her and hurt her. And I remember just one split second of thinking, like, maybe it was better if Dad didn't come home from the war.
The last time that I hit Bernie, she was bleeding that much, I had to take her to hospital to get patched up. Straight away, they couldn't diagnose me with PTSD. The psychs and the medical team in that field were saying things like, go home, listen to music, you'll be right, or there's nothing wrong with you, nothing has triggered this, and it was really hard to get help. I finally found a good psychiatrist. He got me into a veteran psychiatric unit, and from there they diagnosed me with PTSD and finally got onto some medication, antipsychotic medication. It sort of took away those really violent nightmares, the really bright red, blood, gory nightmares. It stopped the voices happening as well. And I started getting some quality help instead of just being handballed from one place to another and not getting the help that was needed. In 2005, I was doing an army recruiting at the show in our hometown. I was messed up mentally, so I was in the back scenes a lot. A few stalls down from the army, there was Church of Scientology. I'd been looking into Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, Jehovah's Witness, Hinduism, Buddhism, anything basically, because at that stage I was searching. And then on the other side of the showgrounds, there was the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They had like a health stall there. I filled out like a little questionnaire, and then they put that through the computer and it says, oh yeah, how healthy you are. And of course it was like dismal. But the interesting thing was on the back of this form that I filled out, there was like checkboxes. Are you interested in, such and such, such and such? And I ticked a few things. spiritual information and that sort of stuff. And I never really sort of thought much about it. And then the pastor from the local Seventh-day Adventist church rocked up on my door. "You're interested in spiritual things?" And I go, yeah, rightio. "Would you be interested in watching a DVD?" I watched that, and he'd come back the next week, drop that off. I was enjoying learning about the truths of the Bible. And so I was reading the Bible, I was studying the Bible, I was putting the Bible teachings into practice.
Our family didn't really like the fact that he started going to church, but me and my little sister decided to go along with him just to encourage him a little bit because we just felt bad for him. Mum and my other sisters weren't too nice to him about it, let's put it that way.
The changes that happened didn't happen straight away. It was maybe a few years, and my health mentally, I would say it didn't improve because I'm still a mess. However, after a few years, I started learning to live with it. And so life wasn't as bad anymore. And my relationship with my wife and my kids started improving as well. So, I'm just so grateful that we have a Bible where you can actually study and know God.
When he first started going to church and all of a sudden he just started loving us so well. He was no longer violent. He was no longer scary to be around. He actually was the complete opposite. So now whenever anyone says anything about my dad, he's always smiling, he's always happy. No matter what's going on in his own personal life, he's always got time for people. And just watching that transformation was the key thing, I think, of me getting to know the Lord. Just his patience, his love, his care, his gentleness. That no matter how much I was told, "Oh, you should do this, you shouldn't do this," none of that changed me. It was watching my dad and how his character was. That's what helped me to know the Lord best.
The next part of this story is quite interesting. So my daughter, she turned 30, and some of her friends gave her a skydiving voucher to jump at Torquay in Victoria.
When I got home to celebrate my birthday with my family, I had to go for a skydive by myself, and I was super scared.
I said to Raya, "Oh, I wouldn't mind having a jump with you," because I'd been wanting to jump out of a perfectly good aeroplane since the early 90s when I first joined the army. And so Raya rings up, "Is there a spot available?" And there was one spot left. And it was like, yes, how cool is this? I'm going to get to jump out of a plane.
When Dad first said, "Oh, I want to come with you," I'm like, "Oh, heck yes, this is awesome. I actually have a skydiving buddy. This is going to be so good."
When Bernie found out that Friday morning that I was going skydiving, there was some choice words said.
I just remember thanking God for those special moments that we had together again.
We're talking about spiritual things because Raya, she has a heart for God as well, and we're looking at the scenery because there's beautiful scenery on the way to Torquay.
I was really nervous. Dad was, I think, more excited. I was more nervous. I don't think that he was really that scared, which I think helped me stay a little bit calm.
At the end of the paperwork, I said, "Oh, look, no, would you like insurance? It's only another $30 each for you." And Ray and I sort of look at each other and we go, no, because skydiving is a safe sport. There's so many rules and regulations and check places. What can go wrong?
There it goes. Woo!
It was finally our turn. So excited, so pumped. My instructor, his name was Aaron Topher. I think the instructors, they both could tell that we were quite nervous. And so now there's a bit of banter and joking, making this light of the situation type of thing. Aaron says to me, "What do you want to do when you get up there?" And I go, "Well, what do you mean? You want to do twists and turns and that sort of stuff?" "Yeah," because a bit of an adrenaline junkie, that sounds so cool. Instead of just jumping and floating down, that sounds awesome. I was like, yes, let's do it. And then it was time for us to go, and so they asked us, "Oh, who wants to jump first?"
I wanted to jump first because I was scared that if I seen Dad jump, I wouldn't jump. If Dad's gone, there's probably nothing that's going to get me down there just meant to be with him. I was like, I'm going first. So Dad was fine with that.
Ray says that she'll jump first, which means I have to get in first. So I get in, Aaron gets in behind me, and he attaches us together, with the harnesses. And then Raya and her instructor, they get in as well, and they're all fixed in. The door closes, and we start taxiing off. This is at Torquay, so it's right on the coast. And I love scuba diving. I've been scuba diving for decades, and actually scuba diving is part of my mental health plan because it helps lower my anxiety and helps me lift me out of depression. So I love scuba diving. We do a flyover the coast, and I'm looking down in this little plane because it's got this perspex window, and I'm looking down and I can see the coastline. I'm thinking, I wonder if that'd be a good spot to dive. And then we sort of come back over the land and you can see the patch quilt farming landscape because it was over paddocks. It was just so beautiful.
I just remember thinking we were up there together experiencing God's creation. This is just another memory that we now have of getting to know the Lord more in a special, unique kind of way.
And then the door opened. And it is so windy, like the wind is just rushing around. Well, now we're really excited. And so Ray is the first. And so she puts her feet out on a little step, and then not long after that, she's jumping out and she's having such a great time.
It was the scariest 45 seconds of my life. You free fall for around about 45 seconds depending on the wind and everything. Anyways, finally the parachute came out.
So then it's my turn. All this wind rushing around. I put my feet out onto the step. All of a sudden, I have this intense fear. There is no way known I'm jumping out of this perfectly good plane. I'll just get back in and I'll go down the safe way. Thank you very much. I'm just terrified. I don't know where it come from. I'm scared of heights, but this was just intense fear. But this fear only was for a split second. It only lasted so short because all of a sudden we were out of the plane. Aaron's gone, and as soon as he's gone, whoa, this is so cool. I'm holding on to the harness, I'm going down and down and down because it's fast as, and the wind's in my face going, it's just an awesome feeling. And Aaron, he's got a GoPro on his wrist, he's videoing it, and I'm looking into the camera going, yeah, this is awesome! And I'm just so excited. And I'm so happy that I was so excited for Aaron. And so we're going down and down, and I'm waiting for the tap on the shoulder to let my hands out. I get the tap, I put my hands out like Superman, just plummeting to the ground. This was awesome. I was just so excited. It was brilliant. Now it's time to pull the chute. So he's pulled the chute, the parachute comes out momentarily, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, the ropes are twisting, the chute has collapsed on itself.
And then all of a sudden my instructor said to me, they're having trouble with their parachute. And I was like, ha ha ha. And he said, no, look over. And I looked over, and his dad and his instructor come straight past us, super fast.
And he can't get it going. And so he's cut that away, and the emergency one has come open. And around this time is when I've looked up. And I've looked up and I could see Raya above us. And because Raya jumped first, she should have been well below us. And I could see that the strings of the parachute are all twisted. The canopy is just flapping. So as we're going down, it's just flap, 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 flap all the way down. Ray is watching all this happen. She's had a dad who wasn't present when she was growing up. She's now got a dad who is more engaged, more involved, and now she's watching him fall to his death.
I remember saying to my instructor in that moment, could possibly happen to them. I remember thinking in that moment, I just want it to be a cartoon movie where my arm can all of a sudden get really long and just reach down and just protect one of the most precious people in my life. I just wanted to just reach down and just protect him, and there was nothing I could do, but I know that I've read the Bible so many times and I know so many verses on the top of my head. My first thought was, I want to help you, I can't, but I know who can.
As we're falling and falling and falling, I'm saying to Aaron something like, trust God, have faith in God, God will work it out. And my belief is that this was the Holy Spirit knocking on the door of Aaron's heart. Let me in, Aaron. Let me in.
I just started praying straight away. God, just help save Dad and Aaron. My instructor said, I'm going to get us down there as fast as we can, but he had to do it safely, so we still took a little while. I don't know how many minutes it was.
There were sheep in the paddock below us. They've scattered. Aaron's trying to get the chute to work, trying to get it to go. And the way Ray described it is that we were really chaotic, we're just really chaotic coming down. And even though the chute didn't open, Ray describes the last 2 or 3 seconds of that as more calm or not as chaotic. It was like angels were guiding us down. Amazing. As we're falling, my legs have hit the ground, and Aaron, who we'd only just met, a total stranger, he has cradled me, trying to protect me, a total stranger, in disregard of his own life. And we roll and we fall, and we both lay motionless.
I, in that moment, should have felt in total despair. That would be the natural reaction. But I feel like I heard God say, I'm going to save them both. I don't know. There was one of the most precious people in my life just fell from the sky and I couldn't do anything about it. But for some reason, it's like I knew God was saving them.
Ray and her instructor, they get down as quick and as safe as possible.
Just sit here, okay?
And her instructor says to her, look, you stay here. He's going to go over and do first aid.
And then all of a sudden he started running over and straight away I sprinted. I did not care what this dude just said to me. I'm going to help my dad.
Around this time, we start moving. How are we moving? Raya sees this, not staying there, she's going over to us. They get a canopy and they put it over us to try and keep us warm.
Dad was in and out of consciousness. He was complaining about his sore leg. He was just muffling, my leg. That's all he was saying, really.
Aaron, he was conscious. He was wanting to get up and he's been told to stay down. Raya, she starts praying with Aaron because I was unconscious. I was just in and out.
I'm going to pray with you, Dad. And so I started praying with him. And then Aaron, his instructor, he started trying to get up to help the situation. I think that was his automatic thought was, this is my job. This is what I've done all my training for. I need to help my passenger.
At this stage, I'm thinking that the Holy Spirit is knocking on the door of Aaron's heart again. Aaron, let me in. Let Jesus in.
That whole situation was so peaceful in a way that I can't even describe. It's like the peace that surpasses all understanding, just like the Bible says. I felt at peace. Aaron started to calm down. He was responding to the prayer as well. I feel like in his heart.
Having had the peace that God can offer myself, my belief is that Aaron opened his heart to Jesus. Around this time, the people from the skydiving place, they're on their way, police are on their way, paramedics are on their way.
I remember hearing people say, Chris is the critical one. He's the one that you need to help. Well, I knew that it looked like Dad was about to pass away, but I had this constant voice in my head, I'm saving them, I'm saving them, I'm saving them. Usually there's no way I would have left Dad. I would have just stayed with him, but I had to go back to the drop zone, which was a little bit of a drive away, to get my phone and just call, because I was scared that they were going to call Dad's emergency contact, which would have been my mum, and I didn't want her to hear from other people. I wanted her to hear from us.
She rings up our youngest daughter and says basically, look, Dad's been in an accident. You need to get Mum and you need to get to Torquay now, because the way the talk was that I was going to die if there was one of us were going to die.
I remember my sister saying, is it bad? Is he going to die? And I remember saying, no, he's not going to die. I remember fully saying that. And for someone who's usually stresses, for me to just say that so confidently is very rare.
Shakara rings up Bernie. Bernie was on her way to work. Shakara says to Bernie, look, I need to talk to you about something. Go home and so we can talk about it. And Bernie being Bernie, what do you want to talk about? Tell me now, I'm on my way to work. So Shakara says to Bernie, look, there's been an accident, it's not looking good. We need to go home, grab a few things and head off. Bernie's last words, remember how I said she had some choice words? These were the last words that Bernie can remember saying. Around this stage, Raya is now in a police car going to the police station so she can make a statement. When I was on the ground from the force of the impact, my eyes were sort of like bulging out and my face was disfigured. Keeping in mind that it looked like I was going to die, Ray hears on the police radio that one of us has just died.
I hope it's not Dad. I do not know this other man, but then again, I know that Dad's salvation is secure. I know where he's headed. I know that if it is him that's died, he's going to be at peace right now and he's going to see Jesus one day. So my heart flipped to that. And then my heart flipped back again because Dad and I, in that moment, were the only ones in our family who I knew wanted to live forever with Jesus. So that means my mum and my other sisters may never be able to see my dad ever again. But then I flipped over again. Dad would hate it if he was the one that survived. I know Dad's heart. I know for a fact that Dad would hate being the survivor in a situation like that.
She thought I'd actually died. Policeman there, he was trying to turn the volume down, but it wasn't quick enough. And then it was found out that it was actually Aaron who died. So this man who I'd just met, and even though I took the brunt of the fall, he did all he could to save my life, even to the point of cradling me. This man now died.
Then I remember turning my thoughts straight to God. You told me you were going to save them both. That was what I heard. You said you were going to save them both, and now one of them's passed away. We all made it to the Alfred Hospital. We sat in there for what felt like hours before we heard a single thing. So many other people I knew were still praying. Message all your friends, just pray. I know the power of prayer. Just as our Warrnambool church were praying, the surgeon came in and he said, Chris is still alive, it's still critical, but things are looking good.
So the first 48 hours there, they thought I was still going to die from heart failure. Found out that I was pretty messed up. They didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again. A dislocated hip, a fractured hip, a damaged spleen, a damaged lung, damaged heart. I had internal bleeding. I had my tongue stitched up, so I must have bit it on impact. 3 fractured vertebrae, 2 fractured rib, and a few other bits and pieces. If I was able to walk again, they didn't know how well I'd be able to walk. I also had to have a hip operation because there was an 8mm bit of bone floating in there. So this is another miracle from God too, because they had 2 options. You either break the hip and get it out and put it back together, which means definitely wouldn't be able to walk properly ever again, or they would make an incision and they would guide their instruments through vessels and nerves and stuff to get this bit of bone out. But if they had nicked a vessel or a nerve, well then I wouldn't be able to walk again properly. I'm now walking. I was in the Alfred for 6 days. They transferred me back to a local hospital in Warrnambool.
Even after he got sent back home to Warrnambool, there was still possibilities of his heart failing. People say that it can be a delayed reaction. I was driving him to heart appointments for the next couple of months.
God, in his amazingness, gave me a window bed. Because I come from another hospital, I was in quarantine, from one hospital to another. So I was by myself and the family could come up to the window. Hi, kind of thing, which was really good. So I'm really looking forward to getting back into the this. Woo! So now I'm back scuba diving. I'm into triathlons now. I'm alive and I have my family. What I found out later was that Aaron grew up as a Christian, in a Christian family. He went to Seventh-day Adventist primary and secondary schools. His family are Christians.
One of our older pastors, he had moved to Melbourne and his wife ended up saying, we know their family. They actually used to go to our church.
With the passing of Aaron, I think it's brought Aaron's family closer to God, which is an amazing thing. How when tragedy strikes, people will either blame God and walk away, or they will draw closer to God. And it gives me encouragement how Aaron's family have drawn closer to God, because it's not God who has taken their son, their brother, away from them. The enemy is the cause of all pain and suffering.
He remembered saying to Aaron on the way down, have faith in God, trust in God. They would have been some of the last things Aaron heard. When you're faced in a situation where your whole life literally flashes before your eyes, Dad was the perfect passenger for Aaron that day. That parachute was going to fail no matter what. If we didn't book in that day, the next day that parachute would have been used for completely different people. God planned for us to be there. The more I realized that maybe when God said to me that he was saving both of them, maybe he was, but it just looked different to what I thought.
The first few days of being in the Alfred, I didn't know if I was actually remembering a dream that we'd fallen and Aaron died, or if it was reality. My mind just couldn't sort of work it out. After I had worked it out that we actually did fall 10,000 feet and that Aaron had died, I started experiencing survivor's guilt, and this lasted for months, I would say. And it probably still does to this day. Aaron's parents were fantastic. Here they are, they've just lost their son, but they're encouraging me. I don't know what to say to that. But it's through their love and their kindness that the survivor's guilt eased off. And now I just have it every now and then. Because I think, especially not long after the incident, I can still laugh with my wife, my kids, my family. I can do things. And then when I got back into scuba diving, and I think back to Aaron, he'll never be able to do skydiving. His family can't laugh and joke with him anymore. And he was such a nice guy. He was one of those guys, if you needed help, he would drop things and help. Such a nice guy. With the survivor's guilt, it only comes to me every now and then. But thanks to Aaron's parents, it was a lot easier not to have that guilt. But life is not perfect, to say the least, and even though I have I would say a good relationship with God, it doesn't mean your life is going to be perfect. About just over 10 months ago, 11 days before Christmas, our oldest girl had a short illness and died. And it's just so hard. However, I'd rather be going through this with God than without God. Growing up, I was the mean dad. I was nasty. I was violent. We did have some, family times and that sort of stuff. But Bianca, she knew the old me. But God, in his greatness, he just knows how to bless people. 13 months before Bianca died, the house that her and her husband and children were renting was up for sale. So we got to have Bianca in our house for 13 months. It wasn't long ago that Raya was telling me a conversation that she had with Bianca, and how Bianca was amazed, I guess you could say, or surprised or appreciative, but she got to experience the new dad. How good is that? Yes, we've lost our girl, but we got to spend quality time with each other. We got to laugh. We got to do things together. It was great. I can't make up for what I've done. However, God has put us in a position where we made new memories. We had new life experiences. God is great. Even though God saved me from death in the skydiving incident, in God's wisdom, it wasn't to be with Bianca. I don't know why. When I'm in heaven, and then I'm sure that God will lay out, this is why it has happened. And it's like, oh, okay, you are good. You are good. And it's amazing how God has kept our family together. So we've had this journey of how bad I was. For God to save our family from when the kids were young, to the anger and the violence and then the PTSD and everything else, and the skydiving incident, and then losing Bianca, our family is still together. We are still a loving family. God is great. He really, really is great. And so now we go around and we tell this story, and this story is giving hope to a lot of people. People are coming closer to God as a result, and for those who don't believe in God, they are also being blessed. So this is, I guess, the beginning of this story.